Brace yourself.
We don't really comprehend the scope of a decade until it's over. Sure, it's not the longest period in the grandest scheme of things, but we don't usually see the accomplishments and progressions we've experienced until the 10 years have passed. For me personally, the 2010s were the years that I began to look at games in a more critical level. During my collegiate communications studies, the spontaneous creation of this YouTube channel, and the time leading me to take this channel in the direction it eventually went. So I've had a bit of sentiment and personal investment in the last 10 years. A lot happened in my life during the past decade, so I guess you could say I digested video games' appeal in a different way than the decade before, where I had far more time to play whatever games I could find in my local store. With all this in mind, deciding upon the games that have had the largest effect on me as a video game fan, content creator, and human being was a challenge. It's a little embarrassing to look at games on this personal a level, but I think that's something we should all strive to do. As much as we like to define the games that shape the entire community on a macro scale, it's the smaller, more personal successes that I'm hoping we can communicate just as effectively. Case in point, this won't be a list of the most influential games of the 2010s, but more the games that have shaped me personally and delivered experiences that I ultimately found long-lasting value in playing. I encourage everyone to leave their own selections in the comments below, and note that these games won't be in any particular order. Just 5 games that have shaped me the most throughout the last 10 years. So without any further delay, here are my games of the 2010s. The Dishwasher Vampire Smile is an indie game that over time I keep making excuses to play. Anytime I need a bit of footage from the game for a video, or even if I simply need a fix for a fast action game, that's the one I pick. Beneath its grim storyline and dark aesthetic is a game that's the closest any independent developer has come to emulating the pace, the rhythm, of stylish action games like Devil May Cry. It's such a rush, this game, one packed with energetic, intense motion that no indie developer has even come close to matching. But even as I compare the Dishwasher Vampire Smile to the 3D action games of the past, Ska Studios pushed themselves further, evolving the 2D beat-em-up genre into something so much more driven. It's fast enough that I never, even for a second, feel like my actions are tied to the controller. It strikes a balance so precisely, one where the game is intense enough for me to learn my actions quickly and instinctively, but not crazy difficult as to induce frustration and second guessing. It's the golden mean. The definition of excellent control that any game like it should strive to achieve. And the content never hinders these mechanics. There's always something new, whether it's an enemy type, boss, or weapon. As I revisited the Dishwasher Vampire Smile for this video, I continued to honor Ska Studios' masterful work, tapping into the past to make something truly remarkable, not just for independent game development, but for the craft as a whole. Even in its brief moments of downtime, the Dishwasher Vampire Smile always kept me on the edge of my seat. And to this day, I still am. Open world games have had many ups and downs throughout the decade, but right now, they're in a place of question. They become bigger, sure, but the impracticality of exploring them has begun to contradict that sense of immersion. There have been many methods to improving these moments, whether it's a better sense of locomotion, condensed objective placement, or simply keeping the player engaged with lots of action. Just Cause 2 checked every one of those boxes, and does what so many other open world games are either hesitant, frightened, or straight up disinterested in doing. The grappling hook is the best method of movement I've ever seen in an open world game. Its skill room is gigantic, constantly giving you new ways to wander around the island of Panau without making the mechanic itself overly complicated. It's compelling with every use, but it also doesn't invalidate basic cars, bikes, and transports. It's worth mastering, but not at the expense of the rest of its world design, something other open world games flounder at time and time again. And with a world this massive, it takes a lot to populate it. And Just Cause 2, without question, easily outmatches its successors there. Running riot throughout the world, reclaiming territory, and taking out transmission outposts all has a sense of progression, a sense of flow. Even Just Cause 3 with its wingsuit felt bleak and artificial, lacking the expansive but sensible world building of its predecessor. Just Cause 2's world is rich with diverse locations, plenty of items to collect, and a pacing system that encourages point-to-point completion without feeling like a chore. Where so many other open world games have felt empty or uninteresting, Just Cause 2 never did. It's an open world game that doesn't reject the genre's fundamentals. Instead, it refines them, trimming the fat and making a game universe so exciting and compelling. Nothing else has come close. Fighting games always felt beyond my reach until Dragon Ball FighterZ. There was a constant, persistent push that kept me from being engrossed in the mechanics, the design, the meta of it all. I had tried other fighting games before, and while I wouldn't say I disliked them, I never felt like I was in it. Dragon Ball FighterZ already had me with its source material, the kind of universe and narrative that kept me invested in my youth. But when it came to delivering a fighting game that I absolutely struggled to put down, this was it. Dragon Ball FighterZ got me interested in fighting games. I was learning the moves, practicing my combos, studying mix-ups and techniques. It was a whole new world, the Wild West that I was so hesitant to step into in the past. To this day, I still make time for FighterZ. I'm still tracking the news for updates, watching Twitch streams to learn new maneuvers, and spending time in the practice mode to hone my skills. For the first time ever, fighting games weren't some alien world for me. It all comes down to a steady sense of education. Auto combos are such a good way to rope players in, but a rising skill ceiling is what kept me learning throughout every defeat. I still have a long ways to go to be anywhere near competent, but really I don't care. I want to get better, I want to learn more. And Dragon Ball FighterZ has the structure and the community needed for a scrub like me to learn about the ins and outs of the game's meta. This was the push that I and many other people needed to see fighting games worth. Now I can see it all, and it's all thanks to Dragon Ball FighterZ. Narrative design in video games has definitely changed over the last 10 years. Worlds are expanding, themes are morphing, and the way to tell a story in a game has branched out into enormous woven webs. You can captivate anyone given the right tool set, but no story gripped me the way Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc did. Taking a chance on a story with an already developed universe was difficult when I first gave the game a go, but what I didn't expect was to adore everything about Hope's Peak Academy and its eclectic cast. Each character had a charisma, a sort of fractured persona that helped them stand out from their peers, and this diversity and richness of the cast compelled me to give a shit about their situation more than any artistic artifact could before. The trials tested my bonds with the characters along with my knowledge of who they were and what they were capable of doing. It was a tense, suffocating setting that no other game had demonstrated prior to it. Hope's Peak Academy became the epicenter, a dangerous grounding point for some of the most shocking but mesmerizing events I've seen in a visual novel or any game for that matter. And since wrapping up that first installment, the Danganronpa series has become an all-time favorite, the benchmark of storytelling and gameplay's idealized unity that I've been striving to discover. Danganronpa is in a curious spot right now, but I'll never forget the first time I played Trigger Happy Havoc. It needed gameplay and the player's input to reach its full potential, and compared to any other game I played in the last decade, this was the one that really managed to sell its world and the characters who populated it. It was that good. Sonic the Hedgehog is still my favorite video game series of all time, and that's not easy to say in 2020. I think the last decade has had a lot of growing pains for the series, whether it's from a gameplay perspective or even just Sonic as a character. It's both curious and troublesome, yeah, but it's hard to dwell on that when a game like Sonic Mania Plus exists. A game that's so honed, so precisely what a Sonic game can and should be in today's gaming climate. It's calculated to a ridiculous extreme, so incredibly well thought out in its level design and environmental gimmicks. It's a game that gets the mechanics, the fundamental building blocks of Sonic's movement down to the smallest detail, making exploring the stages rich with fluidity and a brilliant sense of pacing. The fan service is almost flattering, knowing when to throw things back, but also when to push things forward. And forward it goes. The new levels are fantastically designed from an aesthetic and gameplay standpoint, but it's those reimagined classics that really shine. Revisiting a level like Chemical Plant Zone, but with entirely new gimmicks, moves, and even characters is sublime. And it's all topped off with some of the best pixel art of its era and some kick-ass remixes of legendary level themes. The hesitation and confusion that's plagued many Sonic games in the past is gone. Sonic Mania Plus is a confident artifact, a landmark title for the series, and one that feels so good to play over and over again. As a Sonic fan from the 90s, I gotta say this was a dream come true, and one that I can claim, without question, is the best Sonic's ever been.